this guy who seemed to make his hand grow gigantic, and I got a picture of it. Yeah, so there's like I think there's like 150 of my original pictures, and then at the end, the last third of the book, there's like an index, so there'll be like a thumbnail of the picture, and then I tell the stories behind the pictures. So there's a lot of my spooky stories, and a lot of the history and the funny stories are then in the back of the book. So it's kind of a complicated book, but I think it all works together.
Can I ask you briefly about one photograph where it appears a hand is emerging from a guy's mouth in this long kind of sloping?
Yes,
Yeah, what
yes.
is that?
What's going on there? What was he
What
doing?
is that?
So we didn't even talk about ectoplasm.
Come on, talk about ectoplasm.
It's not too late.
We'll talk about ectoplasm.
So yeah, I mean, you probably heard of ectoplasm from Ghostbusters,
Yeah,
right?
of course, yeah.
Is that yeah?
I've
yeah.
been
so,
slimed.
So Dan Aykroyd is his family are spiritualists,
Yeah.
and so that's where he gets that term from. And actually, that in Ghostbusters, that's where I first heard the term of ectoplasm. But I found out that ectoplasm is this. It's like this mythical substance that spiritualists believe can merge the realms of life and death. It's like a spiritual kind of substance that can come out of the medium and then take form and take shape, and it's got a really wild history because the term ectoplasm was actually invented by a Nobel laureate in medicine named Charles Richet. And there was a lot of, I mean, we didn't talk about this, but a lot of like the really famous scientists from the 19th century were totally into seances. They were all going to seances and doing experiments there and studying mediums. And so in the late 19th century, they started reporting seeing this ectoplasm. And then what ended up happening is a lot of people got caught faking ectoplasm. And then it got kind of called a magic show. So a lot of spiritualists, they just stopped doing those types of seances, right? Like, so a lot of times what you'll see is just like what you see on like shows like the Long Island Medium. It's just, people talking in a light room. There's no dark seance stuff.
Yeah.
But I became really obsessed with this idea of ectoplasm, and I traveled all over to see if I could find it. And so that picture that you cited is a German medium named Kai Mugi who goes and travels and does these ectoplasmic seances.
But is that just in camera, or did you see?
No, it was objectively there.
Wow.
A lot of people, he's very controversial. People accuse him of, being a stage magician. But he travels the world as like a genuine ectoplasmic medium. And so when I first photographed him, it was just really surreal because I felt like I was watching those vintage pictures from the 1900s like jump to life right before my eyes. Wow. It's very.
Could you give his name again? I'm sorry.
Kai Mugi.
Okay, thank you.
Mugi. I'm terrible at pronouncing German, but it's Muegge. He's really controversial. A lot of people in spiritualism absolutely can't stand him.
America, probably.
And yeah, so he's doing these very controversial ectoplasmic seances that are really, remnants from the late 1800s.
So I see a picture in your book, and we'll let you go after this, but medium Mary Manhall, and she's got some weird stuff coming out of her nose, and there's faces in that. What is that?
Oh, that's a vintage picture from Canada. Oh yeah, so there's a lot of vintage pictures because a lot of my pictures kind of reference this really wild, absurd visual history of spiritualism. So that picture that you cited, it's from a collection from the 30s from Winnipeg, Canada. And it's again, it was a medical doctor and his nurse wife who made all these pictures of ectoplasm and swear that they're 100% genuine. And there's some of the strangest images I've ever seen. And I became like so totally fascinated with the visual history. So I started becoming really a researcher. I did a lot of, photo research for this book. And I was able to publish a lot of vintage pictures in the book alongside mine.
So in this picture, they got, is that ectoplasm coming out of Mary? Is that what you?
Yes, yes, and that whole archive it's amazing. I was just there. I did a residency, a short little trip at that archive. It's absolutely fascinating. They have everything digitized online. The University of Manitoba, Winnipeg, and they have all the notes and everything. So if you wanted it, you could do a full investigation into all that material just online. It's one of the best kind of examples of this kind of archive that is access to the public. It's very strange history. The filmmaker Guy Madden, he made a film called My Winnipeg, and it's kind of referenced in that. It's the reason people think of Winnipeg as like a weird city is because of those pictures.
Dude, it's such a weird picture. I'm trying to get to Johnny. It won't let me upload it, Johnny. I don't know why.
We'll do it.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I'll just
it's
hold on.
totally bizarre. Isn't it like shockingly bizarre?
It is, and the reason it's so bizarre is because you're telling me this is from. Here we go, Johnny. I'm gonna send that to you. You're telling me it's from the 1930s, and I don't know how they could Photoshop that in the 1930s.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that's Photoshop.
No, but that's what critics are gonna say. Oh, that's just Photoshopped. Do you get it?
Oh, yeah, or
I'm
it was
trying to get it over
or it's from a magic trick or stuff. But that story is really kind of wild. I mean, that's what I love. These stories are so absurd, but there's real true mystery embedded in them too. This history.
Look at that, Johnny. She's saying that's a picture from the 1930s. Look at that picture right there.
Yeah.
It's so weird. You're like, oh, if it was today, you'd be like, that's Photoshopped. But in reality, look at that, dude. That's a clear ass face right there. How would they do that?
Yeah, it looks like Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, I mean, a lot of them were accused of like swallowing and like vomiting up these creations, or like you have to go through the notes because they go through all these, like a lot of the mediums were strip searched and there's these really intense processes. And yes, it's completely absurd and looks totally insane. I just am like, the more I dug into the history, the more interesting it was actually. And the images are just shockingly wild. I mean, they were the strangest kind of most uniquely disturbing pictures I had ever found. And I was so shocked that they existed because I did not know that until I started photographing mediums.
Look at that. That's so crazy. That's just a crazy ass picture to me. That's a crazy ass picture to me.